Today's episode is brought to you by Restaurant.com. With Restaurant.com, you can save at thousands of restaurants across the country with just a few clicks. Their dining deals range from $5 to $100, never expire, and cost you a fraction of the face value. Dinner has never been easier with Restaurant.com. Used for dine-in, takeout, or delivery. Restaurant.com is offering our listeners 50% off their next purchase by going to www.restaurant.com/podcast. That's www.restaurant.com/podcast for 50% off your next purchase. Restaurant.com, the best deal every meal. You are tuned in to a female-hosted podcast who values you and your time. Each week, I will deliver short and sweet perspectives with no sidekick. So please, sit back, put your feet up, and allow me to bring you Drea's point of view. You are listening to Drea's Point of View, and I am your hostess, Drea. Today, I will be asking the question, is your house in order? This topic comes from an idea that was done on the X and Y show. He's also on the Podbreed network. He talked about the things you need to do in order to make sure that your family knows your arrangements when it's time for you to pass on. In other words, pre-planning is the way to go. And a couple of episodes back, I talked about ideas to have during quarantine, and that was one of mine. I wanted to try and get all my arrangements made. That way, the family knows what I want done. And there's really no right time to talk about it. But during the holidays especially, I've noticed that's when a lot of people tend to pass. So it never hurts to have some type of thing in place. And it's like, okay, well, my wife or husband will take care of it, or, my mom and dad. Like, why leave it all up to them? Why not have some kind of say about what you want? Like, they need to know more than you want to be cremated or you want a funeral. Like, they need to know where you want to be buried. Do you want to be buried at sea? Do you want to be cremated? Where do you want your ashes? Not buried at sea. You know what I mean? Your ashes at sea. Or, like, do you want to be part of family plot? Or will you be buried near your spouse? Certain details can save a lot of drama down the line. Like, I don't want anybody arguing over what they think is best for me when it's already set in stone. Have that stuff in writing. Better yet, possibly go and look into making arrangements, at least if for nothing else, to have a rate locked in. Because if you choose to be buried, like myself, it's costly. And most of us probably have insurance. However, just having certain things in place, I don't know, I'm really big on planning stuff in advance. Having certain things in place is just really the best thing to do. Like, okay, when I did it, it was with me, it's a little bit different because I am not going to be buried where I currently reside. So you have to take your arrangements, the funeral arrangements are where you choose to reside. Your funeral arrangements, you have to go to, the mortician where you plan to be buried. And then you also need to talk to a mortuary where you currently live. So I had to do two different steps, and they were not really easy. But fortunately, the people that I dealt with were helpful. I already have a plot, a dual plot with my mom. So that part is out of the way. So you have to pay for and the little expenses that I mean, there's so many expenses involved in everything. Once you pick out your plot, you have to pay for that. And then there's an opening and closing fee. You have to make sure that that's paid for, and then you have to pay for your stone, your headstone, and or marker. And then it's very like there's so many steps. And then if you choose to have a service, do you want it in a church? Do you want a graveside service? And then who you want to give the eulogy, who do you want to give the actual service, because somebody else is going to decide that for you, what color casket you want, what kind you want. There are so many different types. And I had an idea in mind when I went on what I wanted already, and there was a book. I didn't want to look at it. I mean, nobody does, but it's like, I'd rather decide rather than have somebody else decide to put me in something. So there was a package deal that I got, and that rate is set. So don't have to worry about, using all your insurance money for a funeral and then leaving your beneficiaries with nothing. So then, on the end where I stay now, having to, and they really try to upsell. They really do. They want you to have a service, or like, when I went to this guy, he's like, do you want to have a service here? And I'm like, no, I want everything in one place where I will be buried, and, you have to go through there are different fees. There are just so many different fees, the cost of picking up your body, whether it be from the hospital or from where your home is. And then, you have the embalming. And then that's optional because not every state is required for that. But being that my body will be shipped, I'll have to be embalmed. So then, of course, there's the ticket price to get you from there. And then, the casket is on the other end. So it's like, they're like, they want to try and get you to get the casket there, but they do ship without your body without a casket. They put you in an air tray container, a makeshift container, and then take care of putting you in the casket on the other end. But, and then it's just a lot of little details. So I actually am in the process of paying for pre-planning for that. So the more I could take care of now, the more insurance my beneficiaries will have. And then I wrote out and, in detailed everything else pretty much that I want on down to the song that I want, performed and who I want to have the eulogy. I'm fortunate enough to know a few pastors, and it's so crazy when you bring it up to people. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what pre-planning is, because I had to ask these people, old friends of mine, would they perform the ceremony? And they're like, wait, what? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. However, I just want to know if you would perform it just in case, because I could be perfectly fine today. Anybody could. You just never know. It's just good to have some things in order. I mean, nobody wants to do it. And I didn't have anybody to go in there with me either. I just sucked it up, took care of it, and so it's, so it's set. It's just little, it's less than somebody else, because it's bad enough when you lose Trust me, I've had more than my share of loss. It's bad, and nobody had it really. Only one person had it pre-planned. But, when no one has anything planned, you're running around asking questions, and then people are trying to tell you, force stuff on you, and it's horrible. So at least have things in writing. That way your family, it's already got to deal with loss. They don't want to, you don't want anyone else to have to worry about, okay, well, she's going to want it like this. No, it's like that. No, I think she'd like this. The more you do now, the less they'll have to do later. So it's highly suggested that you look into the pre-planning. And of course, like I said, if you chose the cremation, that's a lot less. But just making sure, that people know your plans. And like I said, if you can have some things already paid for, or at least have it locked in, that's just less for your loved ones down the line. So give it some thought and look into pre-planning. I know when I talk to one, and you can go on yelp.com to get reviews of certain places. And I talked to a lot of them, and, I didn't like the cost for some of them, and then I also did like the bedside manner of some of them either. So that, you have to go through that. But I think I think I did a pretty good job actually in planning what I want and having everyone know what to do. Because there's nothing like getting that phone call early in the morning, because that's when the calls usually come in. And then especially someone who's not local, you have to tell them, and they're like, because the hospitals show no mercy. Once someone passes, they want that body out of there. They're going to give you that call, and they're going to be like, okay, who's picking up the body? And then if you don't know anything, you're calling around on your end, trying to find out, okay, who's going to get it's just a total mess. So if you can take care of, something, your family will be forever grateful. You have been tuning in to Drea's Point of View. I can be heard on Podbreed Network, Good Pods, Top Black Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Spreaker, and more. Feel free to leave me a comment on my website, www.dreaspointofview.com, or on social media. I'm on Facebook and IG, Drea's Point of View, as well as Twitter, Drea Point. It's been my pleasure bringing you a part of me, and I hope that you remain to be a listener. Until next time, take care.